You are now tuned in to the Project 365 experience.
Okay, I don't know. Drum roll, please. I am very excited to have Julian Locasto join us on the podcast. He is head of conditioning, strength and conditioning at your gym.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
Yep. I don't know if you want to give a shout out to your gym. Shout out to which gym
Shout out to Challenger Strength. Challenger Strength here in Northern New Jersey. Doing it for Jersey right here. So.
We got to. And I think there's another milestone too. You are my first guest that is from the United States. So hey, we're moving.
Shout out to the USA. Shout out to the USA. Getting international over here.
Getting international, yeah. So we connected through social media. We started talking a little bit. And today we're going to have a conversation about speed training, which is something that you want to really specialize in. But before we get into going, my friend, please introduce yourself for the people. Just talk a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. Sure. I like to tell people all the time that, I wasn't anything special as an athlete. I was fortunate enough to have worked hard enough to earn an opportunity to play walk on at the Division II level for Caldwell University, small school here in Northern New Jersey. Athletically very gifted, but I lacked the between the ears, the mental fortitude, the confidence to excel, kind of perform at a high level. I also want to throw this out there that, the level in which a coach played should never be an indicator of whether or not, you're a good coach.
Say that again. We're going to stick to that. Say that again.
The level in which you played at should never be an indicator of whether or not you're a good coach.
Why is that?
Because some of the best coaches in the game never reached the level that of most people in the sport. Nick Saban never played in the NFL, yet every player in the country wants to go to Alabama. Greg Popovich, never played a single game in the NBA, yet he's one of the greatest basketball coaches of all time. I always tell people, judge me based on the results that I get, not at the level in which I played at in the sport. That's probably one of the biggest things that I like to kind of hit home with a lot of people. But in terms of my journey in becoming what I am today, very unconventional route. I never went to school and got a formal degree in strength and conditioning, nor do I have a CSCS, which is kind of like the holy grail in our field. Yep. I have neither, and yet here I am. So, when my basketball journey came to a close, I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. I always knew I wanted to help people and that I loved sports and athletics. So naturally, I gravitated towards physical therapy. I went to school and got an advanced degree in biology with the hopes of continuing my education, kind of pursuing that doctorate degree in physical therapy. I worked in the field for 5 years as an assistant physical therapist and aide, all while trying to kind of get into programs. I failed multiple time again. Quickly realizing that this may not actually happen. So, 2 years in, my mentor and boss at the time kind of, asked me, what do you want to do with your career? And very quickly, like off the top of my head, responded, I want to one day open my own practice where I can, train and rehab high level athletes. From then on, he went on to tell me, well, we have an in-house strength coach here at the time. He's around the same age as you. Has his own strength and conditioning business and is looking for help to kind of expand his business. Are you interested? And I later went on to meet my now business partner, Jerry, and the rest is history. I would go on to, eventually quit that PT job altogether 2 years later and go full force into this profession. And almost 6 years later, I've had the privilege of training, hundreds of athletes and, continuing to build a business brand that is, a must for sports performance training in the tri-state area here in Northern New Jersey. So yeah, that's kind of like my little 5-minute version of the story.
I love it. So let me ask you this. What was the moment where you were like, okay, I could actually be good at this? Was there a moment that you could remember?
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I'd
Those are
have
the best ones. Those are the
I'd
best
have
ones. You remember
I'd
off the
have
top,
to
like those
say
is like.
I
Mhm.
have to say that like the moment that the kind of the switch hit was I had been training like my first ever athlete, and like just kind of seeing his growth over the course of like 6 to 7 months that we were working together, and I really got his progress was like insane. Like I'm talking like vertical jump numbers through the roof, like speed numbers, like we're going crazy. Like, and I literally looked at myself and I'm just like, I could see myself doing this for a long time, and I could see myself being really good at this. So like I always had the passion, like passion was always there. I just needed the validation that like, I could actually do it. And like when I was actually getting results with people for the first time, that was like when the switch went off in my head and I was like, yeah, I could do this.
As a as a I want to make sure I get the official title. So you guys mostly refer to yourself as strength coach. There's a difference between strength coach and PT and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, right? So your title, which you would say is a
I'd say
strength
so
and conditioning.
my official title would be,
Mm,
I mean, in terms of like what I am currently for my company, I'm like kind of the director of sports performance
mm-hmm,
for Challenger Strength.
mm-hmm.
Now in a position where I'm more of like a managerial type role. I'm like the head coach, and like kind of head like in charge of all the network of coaches that we currently have in our system. And we're fortunate enough to have been growing to the point now where we have 4 other coaches. So now it's like one of those things where it's starting to slowly build. So now I'm no longer, I used to be literally like the only other coach aside from me and my partner. Like I was literally the only guy in there. Now I'm like kind of the head elder statesman now, where I'm like in charge of all these other younger coaches that are coming up. And it's funny because it's like I mentioned before that, I don't have a formal degree in this, and I don't have like an actual like certification. Like I have certifications, but not like anything that's official that like you would need if you wanted to work for like an MBA, or, like go to
Right.
like college setting. I don't have anything necessarily for those things, but it's funny because 2 of the people that we brought on have all those things, and neither me nor my partner actually have any of those things. So it's actually funny that that's the case. But I guess you would say, yeah, my formal title is director of sports performance, or like a head strength coach at Challenger Strength. Like that would be my main title.
The the main reason why I'm asking that is because there's different specialization, and there's different niches that
Yeah,
kind of people go into. I like to be very careful with how I approach and how I ask my questions. You starting to know this and be like, I want to make sure everything is like
yeah,
good.
no, I
Yeah.
like that. I'm the same way. I'm very meticulous. I'm very to the point. I want to be correct about everything. I have like a little bit of like a perfectionist mindset when
Mm,
it comes to things. So I always want to make sure that I'm correct about things. So
100%.
I understand. No, I get that.
So for me, the reason why I'm asking this is because you know your specialization is speed and also being able to do strength as well. How do you kind of like carve a niche for yourself into that? And how important is it for athletes to be able to have someone that they can go to and be like, this person is going to be able to help me with my speed specifically, or this person is going to help me become, more durable or injury prevention. I just want to like differentiate, and you also to explain why it was important for you to kind of go into this specific avenue.
Well, I would say that's very, I wouldn't even say that when it comes to people in our
Okay.
field, because when it comes to strength and conditioning, we're honestly like, I like to tell people we're not just strength coaches, we're sports performance coaches. So, like, we're seeing it now in the basketball space more so, where we're seeing a ton of guys, like big name guys in the industry, that are doing a lot of different things and putting their hands in different hats. When I first started in strength and conditioning, I was always told that you kind of have to stay in your lane. Like you can't like
Mm,
put your hands in too many things. But now we're starting to see so many big name coaches in the industry, especially in the basketball space, that are starting to do a little bit of everything. And now it's kind of like causing a little bit of like a disturbance in the field, because now
right, right.
we're seeing so many coaches that are able to kind of not just be strength coaches, but we're seeing a lot of successful strength coaches turn into like skills coaches on the basketball side of things too, and doing it at a very successful rate. I know anybody in the industry, if you're in basketball and you don't know guys like Coleman Ayers, Max Schmarzo, like Josh Fan, like guys like that who are like high level skills coaches, but also very successful, strength and conditioning coaches. Max Schmarzo especially was very much known for only being a strength and conditioning coach for the longest period of time. And now we're starting to see he's even going and diving into the skill side of things, because as a strength and conditioning coach, yes, a large percentage of what we do is in the weight room, but people don't see the behind the scenes things that we go through in terms of the knowledge base we have to build. Skill acquisition is a big thing nowadays,
Right.
especially when it comes to speed, transferability to sport and all that kind of stuff. We have to have the ability to understand what skill acquisition is and kind of the science behind that. And that all plays into skills training and it's kind of skill development. And that's why we're seeing a lot of coaches make that switch from just being traditional strength and conditioning coaches, where we're, all about the stuff in the weight room, building strength, building size, obviously working on speed, power, explosiveness, stuff like that. And now we're seeing coaches dive more into the skill side of things, actually getting on the court and helping players, develop their overall skill as well. So that's another thing that we're starting to see a lot. And then another thing is like, coaches on our end also have to be educated in nutrition, recovery, like stuff like that as well. I like to say to people that strength coaches are kind of, there's a meme. I don't know if you're familiar with SpongeBob.
Yeah.
So there's a scene in SpongeBob where SpongeBob's like kind of in his house doing like a million chores, and he's got like a million hands off his
Yeah.
body, and you see him
Yeah.
do like 500 different things at once. That's
Right.
the life of a strength coach, because we're responsible for so many different things. Like we're trying to get you stronger, trying to get you faster, trying to get you more explosive, also worrying about your recovery, your overall workload during the week, like trying to manage your schedules as a player, like, and how that's going to like affect your overall workload during the week, your nutrition, your sleep habits, like
Yep.
there's so much that goes into being a strength coach that I like to always tell people it's not just a strength and conditioning coach. We're more like sports performance coaches, because we have to deal with everything that is involved in sports performance, not just the X's and O's of, being a strength coach and like the sets and reps. It goes well beyond the sets and reps.
Yo, I'm so happy I found someone like me. It's crazy. So let me just tell you a little bit. So, I grew up, when I first started coaching, I started coaching in Montreal, Quebec in Canada. And, I love my city, love the basketball culture that we have over there, but we just don't have the resources per se. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you notice, like the natural talent is there, but the natural talent doesn't have the necessary resources, whether it's paying coaches, whether it's having consistent strength and conditioning coaches, whether it's having nutritionists that educate the kids and all that kind of stuff. Love my community, but we're not at the point yet where basketball is taken that seriously per se, right? So when I first started coaching, I also understood that there was a reason why I needed to pay attention to all these other little things beside basketball. So I started taking a more holistic approach to teaching the players.
Yes.
So with that being said, I got a personal training certificate. I got to educate. I got to know what's going on.
Yes.
Right. I started learning. I got a nutrition certificate. I'm reading about sleep. I'm listening to all these podcasts, and it seems like it's resonating with me. And it's like the best education that we could have for our athletes is coach education. And we're much more than just coaches.
Exactly. No,
I don't know.
I love that, just because, and I'm seeing it so much in the basketball space. There is a lack of, knowledge in the space when it comes to sports performance. And it's a big gap. Like we're seeing other sports like baseball, football, even soccer. Like soccer is another big thing. Like sports performance is such a central theme in what they do. Like they don't just like for years, basketball was never something that really heavily focused on the weight room, nutrition, like, your recovery. We're seeing guys now make it so much more popular that now it's starting to become a bigger thing. Like LeBron James is very, very known for the fact that he spends over, nearly like over $1 million a year on his body. And, that's like a big, big thing for people in our field, because now it's starting to make basketball players more aware of, you have to take care of your body. Like I'm dealing with it right now. Been working with a, Division II level basketball player for the last several months. And like one of the biggest things that he was telling me was, I've never really formally, worked on my body as much as I've done now over the last couple of months with you. And he's somebody that, could
and
have
and
been.
yeah, and before you continue, same thing when I played, me neither. I was just thought that just doing basketball, I didn't think there was a link between the both of them. But yeah, go on. Yeah, go on.
No. So like one of the biggest things that, and I just had this conversation yesterday. I was doing an episode for my podcast with a very famous strength and conditioning coach, speed coach by the name of Lee Taft. If anybody knows who he is, he's phenomenal. He's been in the industry for so many years. One of the biggest things that we discussed was the fact that basketball players nowadays are getting to higher levels, and the mileage that's being put on their bodies is insane. Like we're seeing 5-star level players going to college and like they're so banged up at 18, 19 years old that by the time they get into a weight room for the first time in college, strength coaches are literally spending the first 5 to 6 months just trying to regen and just get their bodies back to neutral, where they're actually at a stage where they can actually make improvements in the weight room. And that was something that I've experienced firsthand working with a particular athlete this summer. He's somebody that, when you look at him walk through a door, like you could see, like he could have been a Division I athlete. He's 6'6", 6'7", and long, could shoot the rock at a high clip, and he had the skill there, but his body just wasn't physically ready to handle a Division I schedule. Like he was banged up. He could barely do a crossover without having issues in his groin and hips, and his knees were all banged up. Literally after the first like 6-7 weeks of training, literally came up to me, was like, dude, like I was never able to hit like a between the leg crossover without feeling pain. Like now I can actually get on the court and I'm doing moves and I feel 10 times better. Now go accelerate that another like couple weeks. Now we're at the point where he's added literally like 13, 14 pounds to his frame. He's going to be entering his next season probably he was going last season as a freshman in college. He was 180 pounds soaking wet at 6'6". He's going to be going next season now at like 205, 250. And he's going to be a guy that's going to be a problem next year. And it's like, he would have never done any of that had he just gotten into the weight room earlier in his life. And I feel like that's the biggest problem with basketball, particularly, is kids are literally waiting till they get into college to actually take care of their bodies, when it's like we're living in an era where, AAU basketball, like travel basketball, is such a big part of the culture. But the problem is that the system currently is not in place where we're fostering development, and we're seeing guys here in the States that are getting to the college level or even higher up into the pros, and their bodies have already experienced so many micro fractures, joint tissue damage. And by the time they actually get on an NBA professional court, that's where you see so many serious injuries from like first, second, third year players. We've seen it in the past. I always like to highlight an article by an ESPN writer, Baxter Holmes. He wrote an article about how AAU and travel basketball is creating ticking time bombs in our athletes today. And I literally can't speak about this enough, how there is such a broken culture in AAU basketball right now, and it's not fostering any type of development. They try to make you seem like you're getting the world when you sign up for an AAU team. But in general, playing 7 to 8 games in a matter of a 2-day span, and having players feel like they can't even move by halfway through the first day, that's not development. That's just using kids and behind the line pockets versus actually seeing development. And we're seeing it in other countries. And that's why I always tell people, that's why places like Canada, that's why places like, you know, overseas basketball, we're seeing guys like Luka Doncic, like guys like this that have played internationally. They've been in systems overseas where they foster development. They have academies. I always like to relate it to soccer in the sense because soccer is big when it comes to academies overseas, where
Yep.
from a very young age, you're put in an academy where all you do is lift, you go out on the field, you play, you do your skills training, you work in with the first teams, you do scrimmage type situations where you're working on situational stuff in the game. And then you're also, so it's a system where you're fostering development over time as kids age and get older versus waiting till a kid is already too late and then
Then try to get it back. Yeah.
then trying to get it back. I'm actually dealing with that again myself. I'm like, I don't like to name names or anything, but I'm working with right now who's 16, 17 years old, who's at the stage in his point where, you know, he's a reclassified kid. He's trying to get into college basketball, but he also waited till he's like 17 years old to actually get in the weight room. And he's severely undersized. You know, he lacks the strength, lacks the explosiveness and speed. We're trying to get him there right now, but it's at the point where it's like kids are waiting till they're like 17 years old to actually step foot in the weight room. And unless you're the top one, like 1 to 3% of athletes that are trying to make it to that top level where just the God-given genetics that you have gets you that far, the kids that are far below that point, they don't have a shot. And it's like, that's what the system has made. It's like, we're creating a system where, you know, athletes are being told that they have to go just join an AAU team and you're going to get seen, you're going to get noticed. Like, but it's like, there's no actual system in place that's like fostering this development.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And it's like I was just talking with a 14-year-old who was like, you know, I got like he's going into grade 10. He just finished grade 9. He's like, yeah, man, I'm missing out this weekend. I'm not playing in this big tournament. I'm not gonna get exposure. I'm like, damn, chill.
Bro, like,
chill.
Take your time. Your time.
College coaches not really looking at grade 9s going into grade 10s right now. You know what I'm saying?
Like,
So
they're looking at the top like 1 to 3% of guys in your class. Like that's it. Like the only time you're hearing about like a 9th grader that's getting offers from a college is like the Cooper
freak
Flat
athletes. Yeah.
Guys that are just absolute freaks. Like they walk in the door, like you got a 6'9", 6'10" freshman. Like that's the guy that they're gonna automatically be like, okay, I gotta look at him. Those are the only guys they're looking at. They're not looking at like the 5'11", like 6-foot guard that like hasn't even fully developed yet. Some players in the NBA that like literally went through growing pains and they had to like actually get to where they are. Like I'm talking about like the Gabe Vincents of the world, like guys that went undrafted that like weren't really guys that went to big name schools. They didn't go to the blue blood programs, like Power 5 programs, and yet he just got paid by the Lakers. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's so many guys out there that are not super noticed, but like they take time to develop. And I feel like when kids try to rush and they're like, oh, I need to get seen now. I need to get that exposure now. It's like, you're 14, dude. You got time. Like nobody in their history ever wanted to be known as the best 14-year-old in their class. Want to be the best 17, 18, 19-year-old when you're trying to get into college or trying to get exposure from like
Facts.
You want to be the best at that time, not at 14. I try to tell people that all the time. Like when we're in the weight room, I'm like, nobody ever got a medal for being the best 12-year-old. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to be the best 17, 18-year-old because that's when you're actually going to get noticed and that's when you're actually going to get the exposure you want to get to the level you want to get to.
100%. So like you assess players when they come in, you help them kind of get back, but then your specialty, I would say, is speed. So I'm gonna start with the obvious question. Can anybody become faster?
Yeah. I mean, I think anybody can become faster. Like anybody who tells you that you can't improve speed is a liar. And you just shouldn't trust that person's intuition just because speed is a quality that can continue to be improved over time. It's not one of those things where, you know, you have it or you don't. There are some people that do, like, you know, there are some people that are naturally gifted. I could speak for myself. I was one of those kids that athletically, I never touched the weight room till I was in college. So I'm speaking from experience here, you know, but I was always naturally a very quick, fast twitch individual that could, you know, I'm 5'9", I was able to dunk a basketball by the time I was in 8th grade. But like, you know, I was very fast and I could jump really high. I can't really speak on terms of like what really fostered that in me. Like it just naturally had it. There's some people that are like me that just naturally got it, and then there's people that naturally don't, but that doesn't mean we can't improve on those qualities. I actually it's funny because this actually is a good time to like kind of bring up a story about a kid that we've been working with for the past 6-7 years. When I tell you this kid was probably the most unathletic person that has ever walked through our doors. You looked at him the first day that he walked in as like a 12-year-old, like 11, 12-year-old, could have never thought that kid was going to be a Division I player, like ever. Like he was super slow, super uncoordinated, was really weak, lanky, just like he had the goggles on, everything. Like would have never thought he was going to be a Division I baseball player. Literally 6-7 years later of working with us, he just officially signed his letter of intent or got his official offer and accepted an offer to go play at Stony Brook for baseball.
Hey,
Like,
nice.
and we completely transformed his athleticism. Like, kid was literally the slowest, probably one of the weakest kids that ever got into the weight room. You know, we set him up on a full nutrition plan. Like, he's been doing nutrition with me for several years, doing strength and conditioning and speed programming with us for the past 6-7 years. Kid's a Division I baseball player now. Like, and that's just from hard work for 7 years. And everybody literally everybody looked at this kid and was like, this kid is never going to be a Division I baseball player. Literally just signed to go play for Stony Brook in 2024.
I love it.
Very well-respected Division I program. And it's like
I love that.
Stories like that just go to show that like it's very much possible. Like you can defy your genetics. You can defy your genetics. It just takes a little bit longer for some people, and you got to start early. Like I all the time, like don't wait till you're a senior in high school to try to transform your body, because that you're kind of like, it's like starting a race 3 yards back, like 3 to 10 yards back from the starting point. You're never gonna win when you're behind the 8 ball. So
yes,
it's
like so let's talk about it. Like, what do you think would be like the key components of like increasing speed, or like that people would have in their plan? What are important factors that, let's say, a kid who doesn't have access to a strength and conditioning coach wants to increase his speed? What are the key components that they would have to lock in on?
Okay, when it comes to increasing speed, I try to break this down as simple as I possibly can.
Love it.
You know, there's a speed equation. So obviously I'm gonna get very nerdy, very, very physics like for a second, and then I'll explain what everything is. You know, force, you know, overall force at impact times rate of force. So how you can apply that force into the ground plus the mechanics. So what does that mean? Force. We need to improve our ability to produce force into the ground. This is essential when it comes to acceleration because it's defined by longer ground contacts, tons of force into the ground from a static position. So in theory, a stronger athlete can produce more force into the ground. So getting strong, 1 to 5 reps, working 85% or more of their 1 rep max. If you can get stronger within that point, you're going to produce more force into the ground. Rate of force development, that's your power, your ability to display force quickly. That's the best representation of our velocity-based movements. So moving your body fast with plyometrics, jumps, sprints. That's going to be something that's really important. And in mechanics, if we can improve your mechanics, we can limit energy leaks in how well you can move. So my major key components for increasing speed: sprint at full speed, 10-yard max sprints, allow for full recovery between those sprints. So think if you're going 10 yards, 6 seconds per yard, that's a minute rest. I'd say sprint 2 to 3 times per week. Don't overdo it. Focus on 1 to 2 mechanical things at most. Don't like kind of bog the athlete down, but try to improve your mechanics. If you do have the ability to, use loaded sprints that allow for only a 15% decrease of your max speed. So loaded sprints, they help with mechanics and force application into the ground. If you don't have access to those things, sprinting up a hill, it's the same kind of stimulus. Get a little bit of an incline on a hill and run as fast as you can up that hill. That's the same stimulus as doing a loaded sprint. And those are free. Hills are everywhere. You can find those. Positional isometric. So working on stance and position and force projection, getting up on against the wall, something that's an immovable object, getting into a sprint position with good angles and posture and pushing into that wall as hard as you can. You're getting the force application into the ground and force projection, but also working on stance and position. I mentioned it before, but increasing absolute strength, getting stronger is going to be able to help you improve right away, especially if you're early on as a young athlete. I also say if you have the ability and you have the sled, like a heavy sled, heavy sled drags and heavy sled pushes, they're very, it's a more specific type of strength exercise that helps you improve speed. And then next, super simple, super easy, improving your foot and ankle strength, training limb stiffness, just the ability to, create the springy like quality in your lower legs. Like that's going to be very key right away for improving speed. Moving lighter and heavier weights fast. We can't just lift heavy weights. We got to lift heavy things and lighter things fast to improve that rate of force development, your power. So those are going to be very important as well. And I always tell people, jump as high as you can 2 times per week. Some of those jumps can be short and fast. The other ones can be longer and more full jumps. And then actually just, not just shorter distance sprints or heavier loaded shorter distance sprints, but sprinting at longer distance, because obviously top speed is also another thing that we have. There's 2 main qualities. There's acceleration and top speed. So acceleration is going to be those shorter distance sprints, while your top speed is going to be longer distance. I'm talking like 30, 40, even 50 yards, just getting exposure to top speeds, because that quality is also something that may not be something that's huge in basketball, but there's research from guys like Ken Clark, a PhD guy in speed, one of the best speed coaches in the world. He did research with NFL combine athletes saying that if you can increase your top speed exposures and increase your top speed, it can help with the acceleration profile. So if you're somebody that's trying to get faster, that's another thing you want to look for. And then I say all the time, the last thing here, time yourself and gauge improvements. Start 1 week, your first week, time yourself, see how fast you go. In a couple weeks of doing all the things that I mentioned above, go back and time yourself again and see if you improved. The only way that you're actually going to be able to see if you got improvement is actually just, improving overall and just kind of gauging whether or not you're seeing any improvement.
I'm very intrigued by speed, because like if you look at, and those are all good points, that's what you were saying. If you look at, it was always this one thing that I was like, okay, can people actually get really good at this? Because if you look at teams like the Kansas City Chiefs in the NFL when they had Tyreek Hill, if you look at the Memphis Grizzlies with Ja Morant and all that kind of stuff, you're looking at speed. Like that's the reason why they're so good, And I always thought that speed was one of those things that was very under. So what is basketball speed?
Basketball speed is, well, speed in general is massively important for athletes. Getting faster gives you more options during the season. Speed in itself opens up angles, it opens up gaps, spacing, and it just puts fear in your opponent's hearts. You know what I mean? Sports are played at sub-maximal intensities of speed. So if you can essentially raise the level in which your maximal outputs are, it will in theory raise those operational outputs in your game. So now those sub-maximal outputs that you're producing in game are now going to be further raised from where they were a season ago. So getting faster in general is just being able to not just, close those gaps, get to those spots on the court faster, blowing by opponents very easily, but also defensively, being able to guard your position is crucial. And obviously, if you're going up against faster guards defensively, if you can move laterally and in multiple directions quicker, chances are you're going to close space, close gaps. You're going to be able to get to spots and beat people to spots if you're faster. In my definition of basketball related speed, being able to open up gaps, free up positions, get into different angles that you otherwise couldn't get into, and just being able to also guard your position and guard other positions. Because especially like if we're talking bigs, like, I referred to the fact that I'm working with a 6'7" guy, 6'6" guy, if I can get him faster defensively, he now becomes more of a defensive threat on the court, because now he doesn't have to just worry about guarding bigs that are a little slower. He can guard guards.
Right.
That now
right.
more of a threat. So, that's something that, getting basketball speed or just getting faster in general, those are the opportunities it allows you to get in season.
I love it. And that is why you're the expert. For people who want to learn more about speed and whatnot, you have a podcast, but where can people find you?
Yeah, man. For me, I'm pretty much everywhere. I'm on Instagram,
Yep.
I'm on Twitter, I'm on Threads now, I'm on
TikTok. Uh-huh.
That's probably the platform I'm kind of growing at the fastest, but Instagram, I've been seeing a lot of growth lately as well. So at Julian Locasto, it's just my name, Julian, Julian, Locasto, Locasto. You can find me on all those platforms. And then, like you said, I do have a podcast of my own, the High Performance Hoops podcast. I get some of the best in the game when it comes to skills, and also strength and conditioning for basketball players on there as well. So I try to, create a one-stop shop for all things basketball on there. So if you're looking to improve in any facet of the game, that's a good resource as well.
I love that. We will definitely keep on talking. We will keep on. We're gonna have to make a collab soon on some posts. We just got to figure out how it's gonna be, but I love what you stand for. I love the insight that you bring into basketball players. I love that you focus on that side of speed. So we'll definitely talk more, my friend. Keep up the good work. And I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.